Casual joint.
Beltone Hearing Air Center presents The Drive.
Ready?
The Drive.
Elmore deep, left side three is good! From 30 feet, John Elmore!
The Drive with Paul Swann.
Welcome in. It's the Thursday, November 15th edition. Your drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Later on the show, we're going to hear from Mitch Jacobs, Marshall's volleyball coach. He had an announcement today, and he's going to be joining us in studio to talk about that announcement and more. Plus, we'll get your phone calls in at 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. But it's Thursday. You know what that means? Get your lineup set up right now. Get it set. Don't wait. But if you have waited this long, I've got some good news for you. He's like a beacon of light when it comes to fantasy football. And now I've got to make these intros even bigger and better because, well, he described me last week as his hype machine. So, like grace from above with fantasy football advice that you need, let's welcome to the program Joe Bartel, Rotowire.com, Rotowire Magazine, your fantasy football savior. I got to script these out better. I mean, last week I was just doing off the top of my head. Now I got pressure on me, Joe, to hype it up.
I thought Beacon of Light already was fantastic. That was very poetic.
You like that? Okay, we'll go with that.
Yeah, chalk the one down. We can start with that one. We can just keep building on as we continue to go.
Okay. Well, by the time we're done with this, you're going to have a boilerplate that you give to other radio stations and other people across the country. Yeah, just introduce me like this.
We'll just spend the first 20 minutes of introducing me. That's fine. That'll be perfect for the listeners.
I like it. How you been? How's your week?
You know what? It's pretty good. I'm looking forward to the holidays next week, and of course, I have my Packers tonight against the Seahawks, and I'm a little bit nervous about that game, but I think overall it'll be a pretty pleasant experience. And I'm actually going to be traveling to Indianapolis this weekend to catch a Colts versus Titans game. My wife is, for some reason, an Andrew Luck supporter like there is no other, and I'm surprising her with tickets. So that'll be it'll be a fun football-filled week and weekend.
So that means we're going to have to probably do this either next Wednesday, Tuesday. We're going to have to find a new day because Thursday, of course, is, we can't be talking about setting your rosters on the day they're playing football in the afternoon. We can't do that.
No, we'll be munching down some potatoes and turkey during that time. So, yeah, whether it be Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, whatever, we'll be able to get that fantasy knowledge pretty early in the week. Okay, let's tentatively say we're going to do, let us say Wednesday. We're tentatively going to do Wednesday. All right, that sounds good to me.
All right, on-air bookings, we've done that sometimes. So before we get into the actual numbers, who to pick, who to start, who to sit, all that good stuff, from a fantasy football standpoint, what's going on with my Cincinnati Bengals? I mean, yeah, you get rid of your defensive coordinator, you bring Hugh Jackson back on. Should I just drop all Bengals football players from fantasy football rosters across the country? What's going on?
No, I don't think dropping all of them. I was expecting more production out of the Bengals offense last week. Forget what the defense got decimated by the Saints. That's a different conversation. I was expecting Andy Dalton to do a little bit more, and I understand that A.J. Green's out, and he's really historically struggled when his top receiver is not in the game. But to only get 10 points against the Saints defense that's allowed at least 20 points, it feels like, for 4 or 5 years, not just games, years, it was disappointing to see. And now with Joe Mixon potentially out, I think we're still kind of waiting word as to what his stats will be for Sunday. There's a lot to be pessimistic about when it comes to that offense. I understand that you might not have better options when it comes to the quarterback spot, and of course, A.J. Green's injury has kind of really hindered things. Tyler Boyd is about the only consistent player right now that I would feel comfortable starting in my fantasy lineup. And if Joe Mixon will be out, I don't think we have any indication one way or another, but let's just pretend Mixon's out. Bernard becomes a pretty good fantasy pickup that you could probably get away with starting this week, but against the Ravens, I don't know, especially if Flacco ends up being out, whether it is Lamar Jackson or RG3 that starts, that's going to be an ugly game that I don't anticipate a lot of scoring from either side. So I'm not positive Bernard makes a lot of sense from that perspective either. It's difficult. I confess I don't have a lot of answers when it comes to your Bengals, unfortunately.
Yeah, nobody does. So with the Marvin Lewis-led defensive core now, do you take a chance on them, say, oh, I need a defense, what do I do? Do you even look their way or just keep going?
I think potentially, but it's not because Marvin loses the coordinator or it's not because Hugh Jackson's coming on board. It's more because I'm concerned as to who could be under center for the Ravens. I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan. I think he's going to be a special talent in the NFL. And frankly, if he ends up getting the start this Sunday, he should be picked up in almost every league, just off the potential alone at what he could do running the ball. Let's forget throwing for a second. He's going to be one of the best running quarterbacks I believe we're going to ever see in the NFL. And I know that's pretty high praise, and the likes of Michael Vick and even guys earlier than that he's going to have to top. But that's the potential that we're talking about with Lamar Jackson. That being said, I don't think we're going to see it right away in his first start. So if you're going to be playing roulette style for your defense, maybe the Bengals make a little bit of sense. I think there's probably better options out there. You could take the Titans or Colts defense, I think, in that matchup, and they'll do similar to what the Bengals could do. I've seen a lot of people pick up the Steelers, and for good reason. Blake Bortles always seems to throw at least one pick or one fumble or something like that, and the Steelers have been pretty opportunistic when it comes to returning touchdowns and maybe get some value out of there. So I wouldn't say the Bengals are an automatic pickup if Flacco's out, but if he is, I think you consider it. If Flacco does start for whatever reason, no, I'm not going anywhere near that defense. So it's really kind of predicating on if RG3 or Lamar Jackson is going to be taking the snaps on Sunday.
Joe Bartel's joining us, Rotowire.com, Rotowire Magazine. So let's look at tonight's matchup. First up, we've got Green Bay and Seattle. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think I know your answer. If you've got Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, you're starting him.
Yeah, but if you have better options, I'm talking like maybe you have a Phillip Rivers, maybe you have a Matt Ryan, something like that, I would actually lean that direction. I would lean towards starting one of those other stud players. More than likely, if you invested a second, third, or fourth round pick in Aaron Rodgers, you didn't take a quarterback, or you have probably a crappier one on your bench, and therefore you're not going to be playing that guy over Rodgers. But if for whatever the reason you're kind of considering between maybe a different top 10 guy, Drew Brees, Jared Goff could have potentially been on your lineup had you taken Rodgers early, I think that's the direction I would go. You look at the history of Rodgers in Seattle. It's a difficult place to play, but particularly Rodgers has struggled there. With guys like Cobb and Allison out, it's not like he hasn't been working with those guys out before. But I think it's just going to be a difficult atmosphere, maybe not for Rodgers, but for the young receivers, Scantling, and in Kwame St. Brown. That's going to be a difficult matchup. So I'm not anticipating a lot of Rodgers scoring. I think Aaron Jones is probably the biggest fantasy prospect on either side of the ball tonight. I would anticipate he gets probably 100 total yards and maybe a touchdown. He might present a bit more value in PPR formats, particularly since Rodgers will have to be checking the ball down if that pass rush is getting to him, or even if that crowd noise is getting to him. I think Jones makes a lot of sense in that aspect. So I wouldn't say he's an automatic start, but more than likely you don't have better options on your bench at the quarterback spot if you have Rodgers.
So what you're telling me is if I have Aaron Rodgers and Andy Dalton, I'm starting Andy Dalton, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
No. Unfortunately, that's not the direction. And frankly, I think Dalton's days as a automatic fantasy play are over. Even if A.J. Green were to come back, you look at the rest of Dalton's schedule, it's not really favorable for that QB. So, I would be playing Rodgers, and I almost wonder if Dalton's benchable or cuttable in a lot of different formats. I know I rostered him for probably weeks 5 through 9, and this is the point of the season now where I'm probably looking at cutting him. Hopefully I have better quarterback options. I have Andrew Luck in 2 of my other leagues where I had Dalton, so I'm going to be rolling with Luck for the foreseeable future. But I think in most formats, Dalton probably becomes a top 15, top 20 quarterback, where earlier in the season I could have argued he was easily a top 10 guy.
Joining us from Rotowire Magazine and Rotowire.com is Joe Bartel. And if you're looking at just the overall week, some of the matchups that are coming up, and you've got players, who are you avoiding as far as starting? Is there anyone out there you're thinking on most weeks I would start, not this week?
I'm wondering if Mike Evans is a guy that I might be benching at this point. Until Jameis Winston comes back under center, Fitzpatrick really doesn't seem to target Mike Evans, and it's more on the big play potential or the red zones where he's looking that direction. But even then, even when they get in the red zone, it's kind of the O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate sort of situation, and we saw a lot of Peyton Barber and a lot of Jacquizz Rodgers kind of mixed into that offense last week too. The Giants, for as bad as they are offensively, are actually a pretty good defense. So there's going to be points scored. I couldn't tell you which team is going to be scoring those points. I think the Giants have a favorable matchup against a porous Buccaneers defense, so that would in turn result in a lot of passing from the Buccaneers side of things. I don't know. I'm worried game script-wise. Again, Mike Evans was taken in the back end of the first round, or kind of towards the middle of the second round in most leagues. I anticipate you don't have better wide receiver options, but you talk about guys that are near the top of their position. I wonder if Mike Evans is a bit of a question mark so long as Fitzpatrick's under center. I'm concerned about it. I'm not enough to bench him, but I'm concerned moving forward for what his production could end up being.
Is there anyone out there waiver wire-wise that you're looking at thinking, hey, I need someone real quick. This might be the guy to go to. I know we're getting pretty deep in the season. I'm sure all the good players with that kind of potential have been snapped up. But is there anyone out there that you're looking at saying, hey, this still has some potential here. This still has some fantasy value?
I'll answer it as a two-part question here. I love doing two-part questions, especially on the radio. It seems right. So the quick answer to that is three receivers: Kiki QT for the Texans, Cortland Sutton for the Broncos, and Maurice Harris for the Redskins. I think all three of those guys could present wide receiver 2 or wide receiver value on your fantasy team. Harris, especially with Jay Crowder potentially out again this week, and it sounds like it could be even more of a season-type injury as opposed to a game-by-game injury, has been really the slot receiver that has been targeted the most with Alex Smith under center. I think that he probably is a good bet to get 10 to 12 points in a PPR format. He's not going to be scoring touchdowns. He's not going to get a ton of yardage, but he's a safe option. And I think when you're looking for a wide receiver 3 at this point in the season and you're competing, having the safe points is probably the better route. Cortland Sutton, also another guy that he's going to get picked up or has been picked up in most leagues at this point, but the touchdown potential is there. And he really had a disappointing first outing as the main guy behind Emmanuel Sanders on the Broncos offense. He's going to do better moving forward. And I would say the same thing could be said for Kiki Cutie, even with Demaryius Thomas as the wide receiver for the Texans. So I think those three guys are wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 eligible players. I'll give you a guy, though, if you're competing for the playoffs, you have maybe a roster spot that you can burn to end the season. Rashad Penny has to be a person you're picking up for the same reason that Nick Chubb ended up doing well, for the same reason that Kerryon Johnson ended up doing well, for the same reason that you were kind of acquiring some of these guys, even Marlon Mack for that instance, off of waiver wires after owners were disappointed with him. Penny is a guy that if the Seahawks fall out of playoff contention, and they very well could tonight if they lose to the Packers, that they probably have to be giving him the ball to see what they have out of their first-round pick this year. Penny's easily the best talent that running back staff has currently, and for whatever reason they aren't utilizing him. I really think as the season progresses, and especially if the Seahawks fall out of contention, Penny makes a lot of sense as a guy that, for no other reason, could get you a 20 or 25-point outing if you have to start him. And I think that's kind of the situation. If you're a fantasy playoff team, you're kind of bound for a bye or something like that, wasting a roster spot on a guy that could end up being the difference in those weeks 14, 15, 16 is always what I try to do as I get into that final few stretches of the fantasy season.
What about Le'Veon Bell? How many drops do you think he got this week? People just hanging on to him and finally realizing, give it up. Give it up.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I would imagine Le'Veon Bell is dropped everywhere. If not, he should, because he can't play the rest of the season. He opted out. And I understand it from Le'Veon Bell's perspective. I'm all for players getting as much money as possible. I wasn't a huge fan of how he kind of stringed people along, and it felt like him and his agent were trying to control the narrative as far as what he was to be considered as a person rather than the player. I think people understand that the NFL shelf life for running back in particular is short. So go ahead and get your money while you can. There's the vocal minority that is frustrated by what he's doing, but I think I'm frustrated with how he went about doing it, and that's kind of where a lot of fantasy owners are left now, where you had a guy that you took number 2, number 3, number 4 overall that literally will not play all season, but you had to keep on your roster for these first 10 weeks. That's difficult, and if you weren't savvy enough to back it up with James Conner, you're probably not in a position to compete for the playoffs, and if you are, you're kind of hanging on by a thread. So it's difficult. I understand that, and that's why I kind of mentioned Giovanni Bernard at the beginning of this, especially if Joe Mixon's out. We've seen his injury history in the past and how they've utilized Bernard when Mixon's out. He's a guy that could fill him and get you those 10, 15, 20 points that you might need from a running back too. And that's really all you can hope for when you miss a guy like Le'Veon Bell, who you were projecting to be your main stud in your fantasy team.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. I've done that in leagues also, different sports, where, okay, say, for example, my goaltender's out, I go grab the backup real quick, and then I ride that for a few games if I've got an open IR spot. And speaking of that, I know some leagues have spots for injury reserve. I don't know if it's as common as it is for leagues that I'm playing in, but is there a guy out there? Because what I've been trying to do sometimes is, all right, there's a guy out there. I've got an open spot, an IR spot. I pick him up now, hang on to him for a couple of weeks since I've got an open spot that's going to maybe come back, make an impact. Is that a sound strategy for you? Do you recommend that?
Absolutely, and I think you could have used that for A.J. Green. I don't know what his stats ends up being this week, but I would anticipate, given that the time frame was 2 to 3 weeks, he's not going to be playing this week. You'd be willing to stash A.J. Green. I don't think anyone's dropping him, though. The guy that I really think of when you talk about IR spots, I've actually picked him up in a few leagues where I feel I'll be competitive for the next 4 or 5 weeks, so maybe it makes sense. Rex Burkhead, he's eligible to return for the Patriots beginning of December. I want to say it's December 1st. He's eligible to come off IR. And if that's the case, you kind of mix him in with Sonny Michel. You mix him in with James White. And there's potential for him to be a fantasy relevant running back, even with those two guys still doing well. Yeah, he probably cuts into James White workload, and yeah, he probably cuts into Michel's too. But to the point where I imagine all three could be productive if that Patriots offense is humming like we anticipate they will be as we get closer to the playoffs and closer to January and February, when the Patriots always seem to do well. So I've been picking up Rex Burkhead in the leagues I know I'm going to be competitive in, and if I have an IR spot. There are some fantasy formats where you don't, and if that's the case, then I don't think you pick him up until after he comes back, not even before, after he comes back. But in the situation where you have an IR spot, Rex Burkhead makes a lot of sense, and I've seen him available in just about everywhere. A bit of foresight, particularly if you have an advantage heading into the fantasy playoffs, could be the make-or-break difference in you winning the league. So I think Burkhead, in that sense, is probably a pretty good value if you're to pick him up now.
Joining us on the program from Rotowire.com, Rotowire Magazine, is Joe Bartel. Joe, good talking to you again. We're going to do it again hopefully next week, Wednesday, since we can't do it on Thursday. We can't. We're going to be sitting eating turkey. We can't do that.
Exactly. No. We have better things to do, better stomachs to fill as opposed to talking about some nonsense on fantasy football, certainly.
Exactly. We'll do it again next week. Joe, thank you, sir, as always. Appreciate it, and we'll do it again next week.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
As Joe Bartel, Rotowire.com, Rotowire Magazine. Don't forget, check out the website. They've got deals going on all the time to help you with your fantasy. All right, when we come back from break, we've got Marshall University volleyball coach Mitch Jacobs. He had an announcement today we're going to talk about when we continue with this edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
You're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann, presented by Beltone Hearing Air Center on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Thursday, November 15th edition. I'm your host, Paul Swann, and today sucks. I'm just going to say it right now. Today sucks.
Can you say that?
I just did. Today sucks. You know why, man?
Why, man?
Only because you announced your retirement today. Mitch Jacobs joins me in the studio. And you announced your retirement, so that just means I don't have a media coach relationship with you anymore. Thankfully, I've still got a friendship with you.
Absolutely, Blue. And we can still talk sports.
And we can. And let me tell you first and foremost, a couple years ago, my grandmother died, and you know who sent me a text just to check up on me? Mitch Jacobs. I don't have too many good relationships like that with any with coaches and other folks. Always when there's something wrong with me or if something's not going my way, you know who's there for me, checking in on me now and then? And I'm sincere. Mitch Jacobs. That's how much this day sucks for me, just because you've been that good of a friend to me. We're not talking coach, just, a coach with a good relationship with someone in the media. It goes beyond that with me and you, because I just think that you're a hell of a human being. And I just hate to hear that you were retiring today, but at the same time, you got to do what's good for you. And that's why I wanted to have you on to talk a little bit about it today because, I read your press release, and I think it's a loss for Marshall. I will think it's a loss for Marshall for a long time, that you are a one-of-a-kind guy, top to bottom, one-of-a-kind. You weren't expecting that, were you?
No.
I'm serious. And that meant a lot to me. The things over the years that you have meant a lot to me. Just the fact that, Mitch Jacobs thinks of me a little bit more than just a guy here asking questions. I mean, he's actually, interested in forming a relationship with
All right, let's
a
move
person.
On.
Let's move on.
Let's go on.
I'm just telling you. I just wanted you to know now that.
And I'm not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere.
We're going to have some more fun.
Right.
We're going to talk. We're going to have some good times. But
we'll get you on the Kurtner payroll sometime down the line.
Oh Lord, Mike Kurtner just went. Oh God.
Yeah.
He's going to have to He's going to have a 10-second delay from here on out.
He's going to need a car. It's going to be. It's not going to be like a sport utility vehicle.
I'm good, man. We're all
need
good.
Like a Mustang.
I'm feeling relaxed about the decision. Mike Hamrick really helped me make this an easy decision, and he really did. He's a straightforward guy, man, and you don't understand in athletics how rare it is that an administrator will just tell you what they think and feel about you, and he will. So even if you don't like it, at least you know where you're at, and it's easy to work for that guy. And he's, and we've talked about it. I mean, it was easy to back me when you're throwing up 20 plus wins every year. It's easy to back a guy who's bringing championships and going to 6 championship matches in first 7 years of D1. That's easy to back. Mike backed me, and he stayed confident in me when I wasn't putting up those numbers, and that'll never be forgotten. I love Marshall, and I just think those girls need better, somebody who can affect them better. I'm just not having that. I'm just not doing it. And I know, sure, I know the game. Sure, I know how to coach. Sure, I know how they should behave. Sure, I know how they should act. Sure, I know these things. But they need somebody who's going to motivate them to do it. And I used to do that. I used to get a lot out of the kids. They knew I was tough, but they knew that their hard work was meaningful. It meant something, and they're crushing life now. And I'm just, they need somebody else. And Mike, that's a good man right there, and I know people that have different opinions, but that's never going to be my opinion. And my opinion of that man is friend for life.
So how long have you kind of felt that this was the right thing for you to do? I mean, I don't think this came up yesterday.
No, I mean, last spring was just a gut check. Kids transferring, not enjoying the program, not wanting to be at Marshall, not things, and we worked so hard to bring in more kids, bring in kids that we think will do better, and not better. I mean, we had so much talent, but better in terms of just wanting to do what the program is, and we don't lie to anybody what we want to do in our program, and it was another it was going the wrong way again, and. You're trying to be open, you're trying to be trustful, and it was just going the wrong way. And so they're not bad kids. And you got to have somebody in there motivating to want to do something right, do something better, be good teammates. And I just think that they can find somebody who'll do that, because Marshall's an amazing place. And they're always going to have a big fan in the volleyball program, in the volleyball community. I'm not leaving. I mean, we're going to run this, we're running River Cities, and I'm going to have more time and be able to put a lot more of my own personal time into River Cities. And I have no problem getting on getting on the sideline with those kids. Those kids are amazing. And I do feel that we do affect those kids in the right way. And the kids who come to River Cities really want to be high achievers, and we do make differences in the right way and in a positive way. And I don't ever want that to end. That's what I got into coaching for. It's why it found me. It's why it's my passion. But my passion is for kids to be achieving. And right now Marshall needs somebody who's going to get this program back to where, honestly, we had it. I mean, and I hope it happens. There's talent there. I hope they get the right person, and that person could bring all that talent out, because the kids can get it done. I know so. I know they've got 2 superstar level players coming back next year, and just starting there, and we knew all those other kids are going to get a lot better, And we only signed yesterday the kid who led the nation in kills. Like 840 in the season. That kid's going to make a difference. You know, we got a libero out of Spring Valley, just won a national or they won a state championship, and that kid's going to be a great libero. She'll be able to hopefully take over for Amber, who is phenomenal. So, you know, I don't think the program's really. I think people will start seeing wins fast if they, they bring in the right person.
How heartbreaking or disappointing was it for you knowing that you had the Conference USA Volleyball Tournament coming this year, and I know you would have loved nothing more than to have your girls right there on that court defending the home court, Conference USA. I know that's probably something that is really bittersweet for you, because it's great that Marshall has that,
right?
But you're not there.
And people should come out.
Yeah,
this is going to be some great volleyball. I mean, there's I think 4 or 5 teams that are RPI top 100. It's just going to be phenomenal volleyball. And we've expanded the volleyball community so much since the last time we hosted it. They should come out. They should come out and see some amazing volleyball. You know, we bid on it because we knew the talent that was growing. Taylor Strickland and I had, we had worked very hard, and it was starting to come to fruition. And last year's freshman class was phenomenal talent-wise, and the class before that were sophomores was incredible talent-wise. And, you know, we just came off a 22 and, 8-year, second place in the league, and we knew we had more talent coming in. And it didn't gel. And some of them didn't like, how they were being pushed or how it was going. And that's on me, I mean, I wasn't willing to change my way because it's the way I felt was the right way. And so they didn't, some of them didn't like it, they didn't stay. And we knew that with the freshman class we had coming in this year, we would be loaded freshman to junior. And we had a couple seniors in terms of Shelby and Lolo, who are they're great kids. They don't deserve the losing seasons. They didn't deserve to be on a team without that talent. And yet they were the 2 rocks that were on that team. And they just stayed true. And, I can't thank them enough, because they did. They stayed true and kept working. And, that's really it, man. I mean, it's onward to something else. And, I've been in a leadership role for 26 years, most of those highly successful. So I think I can figure something out, but right now I'm going to take a couple real deep breaths and, kind of joked with my boss, when I got put on leave. I said, it might be the first non-working vacation that I've had in 26 years. People just really don't understand. They see it all in what a football coach does, and everybody else just must have an easy life. I have not had a non-working vacation for 26 years, but that's okay, because it was my passion to be in these kids' lives. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to take a non-working vacation. And it needs to be said, but there was nothing improprietous that ever happened within our program. And the things we've heard, the rumors that have been told on my leave and the things, it's amazing that people would actually say those things and think that I would have a job, because Mike Hamrick wouldn't allow impropriety. He would not allow that type of behavior. You make mistakes, but I've never crossed the line of that kind of level. And it amazes you, when you're in a community for so long and you have so many good friends, that there's always those people, man. And when you're in the coaching world, which I'm no longer in right now, that's all you face. You just face everybody who thinks they can do the job better than you. We have the one profession, and I've never really said this to you because I was coaching. We have the one profession, Paul, that every person thinks they can do better than you. I'm not going to go in a hospital and think I can do better than that doctor.
Right? That's fair, completely fair.
But everybody can sit in a volleyball match and go, I should have done this, he should have done that. And that's fair. But the fact is they got to know one thing. We don't care. We really don't care. We hope you are a fan of our players. We hope you support the team and Marshall. But we don't care if you're second-guessing us. I just never understand the anger that some people come up with on that. But, you know, I'm going to sit back now. I'm in an armchair. Give me the armchair now. But we're just going to have fun, man. Just going to have fun with my wife and my kids. It's going to be good.
Mitch Jacobs joins us on the program. We're going to take a timeout, come back, and talk a little bit more with him. You're listening to The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Thursday, November 15th edition, The Drive on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. We're presented by Beltone Hearing Air Center. I'm joined on the program by now former Marshall University volleyball coach Mitch Jacobs.
No more sad stuff, man. What do we got going on?
No, we're good. We're good. A few more weeks, we can talk trash about your Chicago Blackhawks. That was like one of our first things that we were doing.
Did they pick the win up against St. Louis last night?
I didn't look last night.
Did they hang on to it?
I was so focused and drilled into Marshall basketball, I came home and it was just I was done.
I fell asleep when they scored their first power play goal in like 12 periods.
Yeah.
So I know it's been tough, and I mean, you get rid of one of the greatest coaches in history, Quinville. You know, I mean, and you know, you got some young guy running it now, and hopefully they're all getting motivated and going, because now I got some time. You know, maybe go off to a Blue Jackets game.
There you go.
Maybe find some more time for a hockey game.
Why not just go to Chicago? Take a quick hop up there. You got time?
When I go visit my parents. If
Okay,
they're playing,
work it in.
Absolutely.
Let's on your dime, because well, you know, I work here. Let's do the Blackhawks. Let's see if the Rangers are playing the Blackhawks one night somewhere, New York or Chicago. Let's just do it.
Yeah, and
Let's
you know
just
what?
make that happen.
And you know what? Let's bet on the game, because I'm
You
no
can
longer
do that
an
now.
NCAA coach.
I was gonna. He was sitting here.
I'm kidding.
He was sitting here during the fantasy football interview, and I was sitting there thinking, you know what? I might want to ask Mitch if he wants to ask some questions about this fantasy stuff he's never got to participate in like 25 some years. Yeah, that's the whole rage now. Fantasy, same day fantasy, 1 day fantasy, betting, all that. You can actually go now buy a lottery ticket or something like that, right? How's that work?
Well, I can.
You can
play
do that.
Lottery.
You can play the lottery.
You can't bet on anything that has an NCAA championship
Right.
too, because you could have inside info or any of that kind of
Exactly.
stuff. So yeah, that's all off limits completely. You can go to a casino and play some cards.
You could actually fill out for the first time, and you don't know when, a bracket for March Madness.
Wow.
You could do that.
Yeah, but you know what I'm going to do is not do that, because I haven't lost any money on a ball game in 26 years. How's
Smart.
that? Yeah. So I think that's a good idea, especially when you're on a limited income.
We're playing. I'm playing fantasy hockey right now. Free fantasy hockey.
Oh, okay.
You know why?
I don't.
Because this is the first time I've ever played fantasy hockey, so I'm doing it free. And right now I'm beating Cornwell pretty badly. See?
That's bad.
Yeah, I'm crushing Bill Cornwell.
You know the game.
I'm beating him pretty badly. But yeah, no, you could do these things now.
I'm going to have time to actually know, like, how all my teams are doing.
Right.
I mean, usually it's playoff times, you get back involved. But, I hope, but I do know what I'm definitely going to do. I'm going to focus in on the River Cities kids, and I'm going to read some books that I've been wanting to read.
Here's a thought for you. Volleyball coach knows the game, could be a commentator on volleyball broadcast. Get that broadcast career going.
Well, maybe we'll start here, next to you, and actually back in the '90s, that's actually one of the routes. I was coaching Florida Tech Division II, and I was doing some call for Sunshine Network, and I also called the Elite Eight Division II when it was at Barry University as a caller. So I got some tapes. There you go.
He's got some tapes.
I could throw some tapes.
We could do that.
I have passion for the game of volleyball, no question, and I am so excited to be able to continue teaching younger kids the game, and helping out the best I can. That's that's what I'm excited about.
So this allows you also now the opportunity with those kids to represent them further, better, maybe as far as them taking their next step, because you can be a little bit more active
some more
in that,
time,
maybe?
and I don't, there's no recruiting rules again on me anymore either. So the recruiting rules keep getting more strict, and now I'm not.
You're not bound by them.
No, I'm not bound by those recruiting rules now. So I can absolutely be more involved. I can go out earlier in the season, because right now, like, I wouldn't be able to go off campus with a team that's playing of high school level till President's Weekend. They moved it from Martin Luther King weekend to President's Weekend. So now I can be with those kids more. I can lock into what's going on. I'm not going to be exhausted by 6 o'clock in the evening. So I can be, I can be in that gym in the evenings, and I don't have to worry about, being up for 6 a.m. workouts or anything like that. I believe that that's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I've always enjoyed the River Cities. So
Mitch Jacobs joins us. We're going to take our final break, come back, and we'll talk to Mitch for the final segment of this show. And then we will get you to Inside Herd Athletics with Marshall University Athletic Director Mike Hamrick here on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Now, back to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Welcome back to the Thursday edition. Paul Swann, your host for The Drive, presented by Beltone Hearing Air Center on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. We've just got a couple of minutes left until we've got to say goodbye tonight. And we are in the studio with former Marshall University volleyball coach Mitch Jacobs, announcing his retirement today. And this is sort of like his audition tape for radio broadcasting. But it's sad for me because, again, you've been always top shelf with me. And
you're my guy, Blue.
Yeah, you've been always top shelf.
I don't think I've had an issue or a problem with anyone in the press, or and I think we've got good relationships, man. And you guys all like to make fun of me because I love Grant Traylor.
Well, who doesn't?
Who doesn't? I really don't care who does or doesn't. I do. That's a fact. And I mean, there's just good people in this town, and why not stick around, man?
By the way, for the record, Grant Traylor is also top shelf. So
I agree.
Yeah. So
I agree.
That dude is. I've known that dude for a while, since he was a lot younger.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, he's strong. He does a great job. So you'll be back, man. I don't know why I'm sad. You'll be back.
No, man. Anytime
I'm
you want
sad.
me on the show,
You retired, and I'm sad.
I don't know if I'm not allowed on the show anymore because I'm not a Marshall coach, but
that's not
I get it.
That's not the rule to get on the show.
But I am a huge sports fan, huge Marshall fan, man. I'm still going to be sitting at that basketball game going crazy, man. I love Danny's squad, good kids playing hard. Last night was kind of fun.
The only thing here is the sadness of this is that now you're, as far as active coaches at Marshall, you're off the leaderboard for me.
Well, it's always been Jeff Small. He's always had the lead.
Mercer's 2 now. Small, Mercer.
Yeah.
Well, no, he was a solid 3. But he brought me a Penguins hat once.
That's probably right.
Yeah, I mean, now he's 2. Small, Mercer, the rest of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good people, though, man.
Yeah, those are good people. You're good people, man. I'm glad you could come on. We'll do it again some more. And, hey, maybe one day you'll be running this show.
It's not a bad gig. It's not a bad gig. I don't know what else you got to do other than get on the mic, but if I can come in at 4:45 and leave at 6:15, man, I might be in.
That's not my work day, but if that could be your work day, we'll talk to the mic.
Yeah, I don't think it works that way.
For our producer Gabriel Sellards, for former Marshall volleyball coach Mitch Jacobs, I'm Paul Swann. This has been The Drive, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Huntington Sports Station.